Good evening and welcome to Space Oddities. How are you, everybody out there, our viewers? Welcome to Space Oddities. Welcome to people watching us on YouTube. Welcome to people watching us on Facebook. And I'm joined tonight by a motley crew of Space Oddities. We've got Daz, we've got Michael, Roger Hyman is here, Lou's here, and Rachel's here as well. We've had a couple of notes of apology. Bernard's mum has sent a note in saying he can't come tonight because somebody's kicked sand in his face, which happens often apparently. So we've got a few people absent tonight, but anyway, not to worry. Hope everybody's well. Thank you for being with us on this Monday evening. And here in Spain, we've had a gloriously blue day, but it's clouded over and will probably rain again like it did last night when I was trying to observe Venus and the moon. But that's the world of astronomy, isn't it? That's the name of the game. Anyway, tonight, what do we got for you tonight? Well, we're going to take a look tonight at the launch of SpaceX's Starship for the first time last week. We're going to sort of analyze what happened, what went wrong, and why, and what were the successes, what were the failures, and all that sort of stuff. Michael's going to talk to us about the JUICE probe, which is fortunately on its way to Jupiter, having launched on a European Ariane 5. So we've got a European probe on the way to Jupiter to explore the icy moons of Jupiter. So Michael's going to be telling us a bit about that. And of course, we've got our normal features. I'd like to turn over straight away to a man with his pulse on the sky. And of course, that's him. That's Roger. So Roger, what have you got lined up for us tonight?
Well, we've got a little bit of news, more interest in the what's happening later on with the moon later this week, but I'll get to that. Spoiler alert. Right. Okay, so from the 24th to the 30th of April, we're nearly at the end of another month. Right. Okay, so we've got our waxing crescent up to the first quarter, of which it will be during the night of Thursday. And I will go on to some more details about what's happening on Thursday on the moon as well. So, But while Andy was having his coffee and missing out on the opportunity of looking at the moon with Venus, this is what it looked like. And very nice it looked too. So on the 27th, on the Thursday, we will be able to see some clear obscura effects, namely the lunar V and the lunar X. And I'm just about to show you if you are unaware of where to look when this happens. And okay, so this is roughly at first quarter, and at the top part, we've got the lunar V, as you can see from the shape that gives you the effect of a letter V on the surface. And then further down the terminator line, we've got the lunar X, which is made up of basically four rims of craters, really. So that's quite could be quite an interesting viewpoint to see in the binoculars.
Indeed.
So a lunar V and a lunar X. I'm sure there are some other letters of the alphabet that can be plotted out on the moon, but these are the most popular ones. But in the hours or so just before that, we've got the Phaeton Alpitagonus. Which is just above the lunar X on the surface. I'll just give you a type of profile that gives the effect of a silhouetted face there.
Humans are very good at inventing faces where there are none, aren't they?
Yes.
Pareidolia.
Yes.
Mars springs to mind.
Yeah. Don't mention that. You know what will happen if you start mentioning nonsense like the face on Mars.
And last night I popped out to the field just down below where I live, and in the hope of spotting all these aurora alerts that I was pinging up on my phone, I did manage to get something. It's not a particularly brilliant picture of the aurora, but at least I managed to get it for the second time in 1 year after never ever seeing an aurora in my life before. So
Wow.
I was good to see it. It was difficult to see because it was because of where I was. It was a little bit low down. There wasn't too much to see, so it was picking it up more from the camera rather than the eye.
I was going to say, could you see it much with your naked eye?
No, you would only sort of assume it might be just a bit of a cloud. So it was a bit of a challenge, but I was pleased to see it again, and second aurora.
Steve, by the way, says at the same time as the lunar X and V, there is an L and inverted E lower down. Thanks for that, Steve.
Ooh.
Interesting.
So there we go. So onwards with the night sky. We've still got a good viewing of Venus till around about midnight, I think. These are all at 10 o'clock. So yes, well past midnight now for the setting of Venus. And Gemini is looking after Mars for us, although it is somewhat considerably smaller than when it was at opposition. It's probably less than half the size now, but people are still imaging it and getting some surface details, which is absolutely amazing. And now going past the southern skies, we've now got Leo going by. So we're heading on towards the winter constellation setting, and the summer constellation is now rising up with Cygnus and Lyra and all the rest of it coming up through. So there we go. But as we go on through, we've got just one image of ARP220, which was in the James Webb publications in the last 7 days, and this is two colliding spiral galaxies which are giving off rather a lot of energy at the moment, with all these new star formations resulting from these constellations all colliding together. 250 million light years away. So
I mean, looking at that image, just by a cursory look, you wouldn't know that was two spiral galaxies colliding, would you? It's such a mass.
Well,
I'm surprised to see the diffraction spikes from James Webb. That's usually reserved for bright pinpoint
That's right.
objects, not diffuse objects.
And as you can see, though, in the individual spikes, each spike has got several lines as well. I wonder what that's being caused by.
Plus all the dozens of galaxies that you can also see in the image all around it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Roger, you didn't draw on this a little after.
No.
Are you trying to draw a snowflake, Roger?
If you look, Lou, to the right, just below the central horizontal spike, it's almost a bit like gravitational lensing there, don't you think? Those galaxies just down below about the four.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah. Yes, could be.
Could be. Yes.
Could be interesting.
Anyway. So there we are.
A lovely image from the Webb again.
Of course.
And I think the amazing thing is that Webb is just at the start of its science. If, as they think it might, if it lasts 20 years, look at the treasure trove of data that we've had already from the Webb, and the amazing images that have really made us revisit, or will be revisiting, our theories of particularly galaxy formation. Imagine what we're going to get after 20 years if the spacecraft lasts that long. It's going to be unbelievable.
And not just 20 years of James Webb. There will be other both space-based and ground-based telescopes coming online, like Nancy Roman,
absolutely,
like some of the larger telescopes on the ground, other IR telescopes, and so on. So we combine it all together, and we might just figure this universe out. Yeah,
I love your optimism, Lou. I really do. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Well, that's my part done.
Just one question for you, Rog. Chris in the chat's asked, why do the Moomins use the Roman alphabet? I'm assuming he's talking about the X and V. So have you got an answer for that?
No.
Right, over to you then, Andy.
Okay. I don't know if you could make anything but like the Chinese calligraphy or anything else like that, but that's how it is.
Perhaps the Moonians were actually the people who invented the alphabet, and they brought it to Earth and gave it to the Romans to use free of charge and without any licensing restrictions. Now, there's a thought.
Mm.
Yeah.
Roger,
Moonians. I thought they were Moomins.
Your first answer of no was one of the most honest answers from an astronomer I've heard in a long time.
Couldn't even make anything up.
Well, listen, if you spend any time on social media, you just get a permanent face palming from the stuff that people just make up off the top of their heads with absolutely nothing to back it up. I was having a what should we say, a contretemps with somebody on Facebook yesterday, I think it was, and the stuff that this guy was coming out with was just, piffle, for want of a better word. And I thought, well, how do people
Piffle?
Yeah, how do people invent this stuff in their heads and think they can tell it to people who are experts on the subject and try and convince them it's correct when they've just got absolutely no facts to back it up whatsoever? Humans are amazing creatures. We're full of the brown stuff. Yes, Ian says, predictably, clangers. So, yeah. You probably wouldn't get that reference, Lou. It's a children's TV.
One of those British words.
Yeah, no, it was a children's TV series called The Clangers, about some aliens who lived on a moon, and anybody of our young age remembers The Clangers. So anyway,
yeah, the cosmic chicken and the soup dragon.
Oh, yes. Those were the days. Yes. Anyway, Button Moon as well. That was another one. And Doctor Who himself, Peter Davison, wrote this and sang the theme tune for that. So they were.
Well, I was just thinking, Andy. You said, where do people get this piffle from? I think you've just answered it.
Children's television. It's got a lot to ask. Anyway, thank you to Roger as always for your guide to the night sky. Invaluable as always, and lovely moon images again. Roger, I keep telling
there might be something else later, but I can't say, Rachel?
Oh, intrigue.
Who would know?
Okay, so moving on. As you may be aware, if you certainly watched our live coverage of it, last Thursday, SpaceX finally launched their revolutionary Starship vehicle into, well, I was going to say into space, but it didn't quite get that far. And the Starship has been under development for about 4 years now, coming up to 4 years. And SpaceX has gone from nothing to try and put it into an orbit in 4 years, which, is unprecedented in the history of rocketry, a vehicle of such huge size, the biggest, tallest, most powerful rocket ever built, twice as powerful as a Saturn V, just about. To go from nothing to try and get that into orbit in 4 years is astounding. As you're probably aware, especially if you watched our coverage and heard our disappointed screams, the mission the flight did not end well, with the vehicle having to be blown up by the flight termination system because it was basically out of control. So I think what we'll do is just have a look at what happened in the mission, give you some latest information about it, and then we can have a chat about it. So the mission started well enough. Just give me 1 second, and I will get this going. So this is our analysis of what happened. It started well enough, and I'm going to play a video of about the first minute of the launch. I've turned the sound off on this video so that I can talk over it and not struggle to be heard. So this was the first minute of the launch. As you can see, Starship on the pad with the Super Heavy booster beneath it. The vehicle is white in the lower half in the B7 booster because it's basically frozen because of the cryogenic fuel. That's ice you're looking at. And let's have a look at about the first minute of the flight, and I'll point some things out as we go along. So this was starting at 13 seconds before liftoff. Everything appears to be proceeding well. And the first thing you will see will be of course, the ignition of the engines. which is happening now. And it's a full 10 seconds before the vehicle lifts off the pad. Now, pay attention to what's happening. Do you see those enormous chunks of debris that are being thrown up in the air? Some actually reach the height of the top of the Starship itself. At the bottom left of the screen, there's a graphic showing you all of the engines. And as you can see already, if my name isn't obscuring it too much, that it's already showing that 3 engines are not firing. There's more debris coming off the bottom of the rocket now. There was a bright flash there, which we think was the explosion of one of the hydraulic control units. And another engine goes out at this point. So we've now got 4 engines not firing. And as the vehicle ascends, you'll notice that the stream of exhaust coming from the rocket, there's something wrong with it. It's not even. And something is definitely wrong at this point. You can see the base of the rocket there. You can just about see there that there are some engines that aren't firing. And as it ascends, it actually loses more engines. And those bright flashes coming off the Starship indicating something is definitely not right. Now we're looking straight at the base of the rocket now. And you can see that, in fact, now there are 6 engines that are just not firing. And in fact, the situation was worse than that. And I'll show you that now, because this is a close-up. And not only are the engines not firing, the engines aren't there. The actual nozzle from the engines of those 6 has disappeared. There's no nozzle. So those engines have basically been destroyed, and 3 of them were destroyed before the rocket even left the pad or left the launch tower, ascended to above the launch tower, by that flying debris. So from this point on, in fact, as soon as the vehicle cleared the tower, its fate was more or less sealed. With these engines missing and the hydraulic control unit blowing up, the vehicle would very soon lose the ability to control its trajectory. This was the orbital launch mount after the launch, and this is a still from a video taken from a plane. This is the first view we had of it. It's absolutely fried. It's like it's been sandblasted. And if you look underneath it, you'll see that there's a big hole, a big crater. I'll show you that in more detail in a moment. So you may not be aware that Elon Musk wanted to build this whole system without putting in what's called a flame diverter. This is a trench underneath the launch mount to divert the flames away from the mount to prevent the exhaust gases damaging anything. And he was adamant that they weren't going to build a flame diverter, because he says when the Starship lifts off from the moon or Mars, that there won't be a flame diverter. So that SpaceX had to learn how to launch this thing without there being a diverter to take the destructive flames away. Of course, the booster will not be lifting off from the Mars or the moon, only the Starship itself. But even so, he wanted to launch without having a flame diverter in place to see if it could be done. Now, if you look at a before and after picture of the launch mount, the picture on the left was taken I think maybe 4 or 5 days before the launch. Some of the scaffolding is still up on the orbital mount where they've been working on it. But look at the difference before and after. As you can see, the launch mount is basically fried. We don't know yet whether there's been any structural damage to it that will require it to be demolished. But they spent a long time building that ring, if you like, which contains 24 clamps to hold the vehicle down while it develops thrust and then let it go. And that was an extremely complicated thing to build. And we hope that that ring at least has survived, even if the supports haven't, because this is a close-up of the bottom of the launch mount. You can see across the middle the rebar, which is the steel reinforcement that is normally inside concrete. The rebar has survived, but the concrete surrounding it has vaporized or been thrown high into the air. Some of the pieces actually came down in the sea. So this is an absolute disaster. You've got a hole several meters deep. It's now filled up with water. You can see the water at the sort of the bottom left of the hole. They're already building up. So far, SpaceX have not done anything to clear this up. They don't really know what to do, I think, at the moment, how they're going to start this mammoth cleanup. This is the orbital launch, the orbital tank farm, which stores liquid oxygen, liquid methane, nitrogen, and water. 2 of the tanks have taken a real denting, if you like, from the flying debris, although it has to be said, luckily they weren't punctured. And the 2 that were hit, that you can see in the picture there, one was full of water and the other one was empty. So luckily the debris didn't hit the liquid oxygen or liquid methane tanks. We don't know how full they were at the time, whether they were empty because the Starship had been fueled. We don't know. But potentially there could have been a massive explosion there. This is another view of the same thing with the 2 tanks there, heavily dented, and in the foreground, that orbital launch mount, which, looks absolutely devastated. It's going to be a long time before this is put right. Elon Musk is saying that they're going to fly again in 1 or 2 months. No, they're not. This is Elon time we're talking about. And even when they repair the damage, there's still the certification from the FAA that they have to obtain. You can bet your life that neither NASA or the FAA are happy about this. They are going to demand almost certainly some major changes to the way that this vehicle is launched. Whether it ever flies from Boca Chica as well, again, or whether they will move everything to the Cape in the new site that they're building there, we don't know. But there's a long road to go before this Starship launches from Boca Chica, again, if it ever does. This is the Starhopper. This is the first vehicle it was a test vehicle that flew up to a height of 50 meters to test the new Raptor engine that is now in Starship, which it did almost perfectly. And they've kept it on the site as a sort of a museum piece, and they're using it to attach cameras and comms equipment to, as you can see. But that took a beating as well. And this was the result of the launch. The flight termination system had to be used. There were 2 explosions, one to detonate the Starship and one to detonate the booster, because the vehicle, because of the damage I mentioned earlier, was unable to get any further into orbit because the loss of hydraulics, meant that the Starship could not separate from the booster. The altitude was too low anyway for the Starship to separate, and they missed that altitude. And as far as we know, that loss of hydraulic power was the main reason why the Starship did not separate. So, as I said, the fate of this vehicle was sealed actually before it had cleared the tower. Now, you might say, well, this was a stupid idea not to include a flame diverter and a decent water suppression system to damp down the flames and also to protect the spacecraft itself against damage by sound waves. Well, yes, you can argue that it was a very stupid decision. And one I'm sure Elon Musk regrets making now, because the decision was his. So as I said, they're going to have to come up with some major changes to Starship. SpaceX insiders are saying that it's going to be at least the end of the year before SpaceX will attempt another flight of the Starship. This is not good news for NASA's Artemis project, because the Starship needs to be tried and tested in its lunar configuration if astronauts are going to be sent to the moon in 2025. And the way it's looking at the moment, I don't think we'll see any manned flights or crewed flights to the moon much before 2027, possibly even 2028. This has delayed the Starship program by quite a bit, and it's going to need a major rethink. And just to remind you, Elon Musk said on Twitter in 2020, aspiring to have no flame diverter at Boca Chica, but this could turn out to be a mistake. And it was a giant mistake. So there you have it. That's what happened in the mission. And
yeah, because Eleanor in the chat
yes,
has written, it seems to me the same issue Korolev was having with his launcher for the moon. Of course, that was the large N1 rocket,
yes, that's right,
which had 30 engines, and they had a habit of blowing up at different stages during the launch. So yes, that's true. That's true, Eleanor.
Yeah,
it was the same sort of thing.
Yeah, and Derek says health and safety would close that down. Well, I think they already.
Yeah, no hard hats.
Yeah, no, that's right. No harder. Yeah. Excuse me. So yes, I mean, SpaceX have now got a long road in front of them to solve this and to come up with, obviously a better way, a safer way of launching that rocket. Because the thing was that imagine this: the Starship did fly out over the Gulf of Mexico, yes. But what if that loss of hydraulic power had somehow meant it went off in the wrong direction over inhabited areas, and they had to use the flight termination system over inhabited areas? That could have been absolutely catastrophic. So there is a lot of work to do, I think.
So with
Yeah, that certainly seems to me.
with Artemis, though, Andy, obviously the SpaceX HLS was chosen by NASA. What about could NASA actually go to somebody else now? Do you think could that happen?
It's not NASA's decision, really. It's Congress.
Right.
If Congress come up with the funding for another supplier of the HLS, the Human Landing System, I'm sure NASA would really jump at the chance, because they never wanted to choose just one in the first place. It was Congress not giving them the money that forced NASA to only choose one manufacturer to build the vehicle that will take people to the surface of the moon. And I think now questions will be asked. Well, they ought to be asked in Congress. Not just about going forward, but why Congress didn't come up with the money originally, because this was a real direct result of it. Let's make no mistake. Elon Musk said that it only had a 50% chance of reaching orbit. He wasn't more. He's been quite honest about it. This is a test vehicle. It could go wrong. We sort of expect it to go wrong. It's all part of their iterative development process. But it could have turned into a real catastrophe with lives lost so easily. And I think a lot of questions have to be asked now. So it's all a bit of a mess, actually.
Yeah, the reason I
think Mike astronaut Kimru is what I was just going to say. Congress have already put the money up, haven't they, for a new lander, because they wanted competition. And isn't it Dianetics and the alpaca again?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Does I mean
that's not for the first mission. SpaceX are definitely doing the first.
No. Sorry, yeah.
So, it will be the lunar Starship that will make the first attempt to land people on the moon.
Is that written in stone then, that it's going to be the SpaceX Starship for the first mission?
Yeah, it is.
Nice.
Yeah, because you can remember all the hassle it caused when it was selected. It's the first time they've been sort of like stepped out of their comfort zone and went to a private company, and of course all the lawsuits that started flying around and things like that, and it delayed the whole system. But I must admit, and this is my own personal thought, I do see every time I see something regards planning for Artemis and the moon landings and things like that, SpaceX gets very small mention. It never gets the big mentions. It's supposed to be, like you say, it's supposed to land the man on the moon. The crew on the moon. And for the first time for 50 odd years, because it caused a bit of consternation when it was chosen, and I think there's still some angst against it. They didn't want it. They were expecting it to go to other manufacturers, but it does need to be sorted so that we can get this ball rolling. As Andy said, this was a test vehicle. It actually launched. I must admit, I did have some trepidation when I first saw it start to rise out of the dust cloud. At the lean that it had, and I thought, is that going over? But it slowly throttled its way up. Because some people were saying, well, why did it wreck the pad this time and not when they did the test? Well, of course, when they did the test, they only ran them at 50%.
Yeah.
That's right. So this time they ramped them up. They were going as high as 90%. I think to get it off the ground, they probably went a little bit more. But once it got moving, it started to fly beautifully. But then the damage had already been done.
And also, The static fire test lasted about 5 seconds.
Yeah.
the Starship took about 10 seconds to develop the thrust and
Yeah.
move off the pad. So, by the way, they're calling it unscheduled extreme digging. That's
But the thing was, again, also when they started the engines, if you remember, Andy, it was a staggered start. It was in 3 stages
yes,
as well.
That's right. That's right.
So that's why it took that little bit longer. But it did seem to take quite a long time before it finally did start to move. I must admit, I was a bit trepidatious about it.
Yeah.
But a bit of trepidation. And then, of course, when it launched, it was at that quite an acute angle.
Yeah.
And whether that was meant or whether or not it was because some of the engines had already stopped. And as you said, the engines that were going out while it was actually in flight, they were doing a hard flame out. You could see.
Yes, they were.
There was lots of soot. There was lots of seemed like you say debris. So they weren't just sort of like cutting out. They were going, and as you saw, the actual nozzles were gone.
Yeah, so without nozzles, which of course would give them much reduced thrust. So again, can we just say we have a new viewer with us, and Miss Duck 72. Hello, Miss Duck 72. You're more than welcome here. You're not gate crashing. You're welcome to join us at any time. It's lovely to have you here, and we hope you enjoy yourself here at Space Oddities. So you're very welcome. Make yourself at home. Put your feet up. Grab a coffee and enjoy. So there we are. So welcome. You're more than welcome. Of course you are. Yes. So the plan is to not install a flame diverter as such, but to basically put a huge steel sheet underneath the launch mount. Actually, several thicknesses, and with a gap between the thicknesses that's going to be water cooled, and that is the plan. Now, nobody knows if that will work. It's one idea. They have a problem with at Boca Chica because the water, it's right next to the sea. The water table is very high. And if, as you saw in the photo, you dig down any depth at all and it immediately starts filling with water. So digging a flame diverter there underneath that will be very, very difficult and a long job. So, you know, in retrospect, you could say Boca Chica is not the ideal place in that case. But my own suspicion is that they will do what they've been said they're going to do, move flight operations to the Cape and just use Boca Chica for R&D. And I think that makes perfect sense, to be quite honest, because, you know, it's on a peninsula that's largely uninhabited. There's just the tiny village of Boca Chica there, which was originally sort of a retirement village until SpaceX bought most of the houses. That is fairly uninhabited. But if that rocket had veered off course because of the damage to it and gone over populated areas and they'd had to use the flight termination system, it could have been disastrous. So there we are.
You know, it seems to me that 33 engines, all needing to ignite, all needing to work properly, represents a significant risk to the mission. I mean, that's a lot of. I mean, there are already tens of thousands of things that have to go right. Adding that level of complexity, I think is, in fact, isn't that one of the issues that the Soviet Union had when they were launching to the moon? They had multiple engines. Forget how many. It was many engines, and they didn't all work. Well, I'm not an engineer.
No.
And it's easy to sit back on my couch and say, you know, do it this way, but it's just something.
Yeah, because the N1, as you said, Lou, that had 30 engines, and again, as you said, 9 times out of 10, it was because of the engines were failing. But whereas the Starship looked like a lovely lean pencil with some fins on it, coming to a nice point, the N5 was like an upside down ice cream cone. So it was very, very thick at the bottom of it, and could come up to a point. But yeah, as you said, it was the N1. There was only 10 made. 4 were actually launched. The N5 that exploded on the pad just as it was about to leave the tower. If you thought that was a big crater at Boca Chica, What it left at Baikonur was a very big hole. Debris was spread over 6 miles, and at the time it was the largest non-nuclear man-made explosion. So it was heard 20 miles away. It rattled windows 20 miles away.
However,
all to say that space flight is difficult.
Yes. Well, let's talk now. It's not all doom and gloom. We should remember this. Let's talk about what went right with the flight. Firstly, SpaceX have demonstrated that they have a viable vehicle in the Starship and the Super Heavy booster. Had that damage not occurred to the rocket as it was ascending, the mission would have gone a lot better. It may even have got into orbit, and Starship may have done its 90% orbit around the Earth. SpaceX have demonstrated that the Starship, as a launch system with the booster and Starship, it works. It can fly. It can get off the ground. That immensely powerful rocket has made it into the history books as being the most powerful rocket ever to fly. And with this, they have demonstrated that for the future, this could well be the vehicle that takes us not just to the moon, but to Mars and beyond. And it is hoped that they solve this problem with the way of launching it. And I'm sure that come the next flight, things will be a lot better. It was an immense success. The vehicle itself was an absolutely giant success. I must admit, and I'm sure many people did have the same thoughts, that if it got off the pad, Elon Musk himself said it, they considered anything after getting off the pad and clearing the tower icing on the cake, because nobody knew what was going to happen. This was impossible to predict. Of course, engineers can run simulations and whatever. Nobody knew what would actually happen. And to see that ascending into the sky in the way that it did was absolutely magical and, a real taste of the future. But, as I said, it's a test vehicle. They need to do some work. And I'm sure they'll bounce back from this. And the next flight will go a lot better, I'm sure. I think everybody would agree with that, no?
Yeah, just Chris in the chat says, why is it so difficult now when we managed it nearly 60 years ago? And I've got a funny feeling that losing it hit the nail on the head. It's these small engines, and there's a lot of them. You've got to get them all working correctly. But also the Saturn V, and I think that's what you're referring to, that was 5 massive engines, and they were really big. And when I say big, they were not just huge nozzles, they were tall as well. They were about 13, 14 feet tall. But they ran on kerosene and oxygen. And they produced so much thrust that you only needed 5 of them to actually launch it, to get all that weight off of the pad. But with, and as Lou was sort of like indicating, that maybe 33 engines, it's just overcomplicating things. But you need those sort of engines because this produced, as it launched, twice as much power. All those rockets together produced twice as much power as the Saturn V did when it launched. But it's a completely different. Of course, these are using gas as well, rather than liquid gas, rather than actually kerosene. So they're not so powerful. So you need more of them. And this is why with the other rockets, when you talk about the heavies, most of them use solid rockets, solid fuel rockets, to give them that boost to get them off the pad and up into space.
Yeah.
So, but I think that's what the engine's technology was completely different with the Saturn V.
Sure.
And they were far more powerful.
Yeah.
It was different, and it was more evolutionary, step by step, with the Saturn I, the Saturn 1B, and so on. This seems to me to be kind of a if you will, a quantum leap in rocketry. Something that, although we know the basics of rocketry, this rocket has not had much of an evolution. So, we're all very privileged today. We don't see many failures from the launch pad, right?
No,
But there was a time when we did, when everything was new, and I think everything is new again. We've lost a lot of the knowledge we had, right? Going to the moon back in the late 60s and early mid 70s, we lost a lot of that knowledge. We had to recreate everything with new technology.
Yeah.
So, we'll get it right. We'll get it right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because there was talk, I did read just recently that they were thinking about reinventing the Saturn V for SLS. But of course, as Lou said, we've lost the technology. They don't know how to make them anymore. So that was one of the reasons it wasn't used. Well, they did think about it.
They still know how to make them. I mean, they've got the original plans and everything. What they don't have is the engineering skills that used to be in NASA, because that generation of engineers are long retired and many have passed on. So it's that expertise that I think NASA are missing. Because you were talking when they built the Saturn V, you had guys with decades of experience in rocket engineering, and some have been with building rockets since the beginning of the space program and before. So anyway, we will see. All right then. And any final thoughts on this before we move on? Anybody?
Andy?
Yeah, Mike.
Yeah. Yes, Mike.
Just a thought on that, Andy. Also, with the old Saturn V idea, you wouldn't get the backing of all 50 member states, because virtually every state now has got a finger in SLS.
That's true. That's true.
They need all the help that they can get with the government representatives of those states.
Yes, in fact, Daz and I were discussing something we found, a list of all the contractors for SLS and where they are.
Yeah.
They're in every state, and there were 100 and something of them. And, it's a truly nationwide project, the SLS, in terms of, who's building for it. Well, it's an international project, of course, because Europe's heavily involved as well. And Japan is involved, and, everybody's involved. And there we are. So we will see what happens. But watch this space. Here at Space Oddities, if it's happening in space, it's happening in Space Oddities. Watch this space. Yeah, very good. Yes, Daz.
Graham in the chat says NASA can borrow my Haynes manual for the Apollo 5 if they ask, if they need to.
Yeah.
Remember the Haynes manuals from old?
Yeah, there is actually a Haynes manual from the Saturn V. I've seen it on the web.
Yet.
Yeah, that's what they need. They need a good manual. Anyway, we will move on.
Well, you do realise that Haynes Publishing is in Sparkford, just around the corner.
Oh, is it?
Is it really?
No.
Pay them a visit, Roger.
Yeah,
Anything Sparkford doesn't
around
have.
the corner from me.
Oh, okay.
It's where I go to get my COVID-19 vaccinations.
Oh,
What, Haynes?
Yes,
You were lucky that you survived, Roger.
absolutely.
So they obviously wrote the manual on creating clear skies as well in Sparkford.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
When you went, did they also do an oil change, Rod?
whoa!
Hey.
Handbags at dawn. Okay. All right. Well,
That was that transfusion, and
yes, he went to the dentist about his wisdom teeth, and he had one put in. So.
Dear me. All right, come on, less of the bitchiness.
Have a dig at Roger Monday. It'll be somebody else's turn next week, Roger, so don't worry about it. Okay, let's move on. Just before we go any further, can I just say an enormous thank you to Macclesfield Astronomical Society, for whom I delivered a talk last week over Zoom about taking images of black holes. Thank you, Macclesfield. You were the absolute perfect hosts. I did enjoy my time with you. Thank you for being so attentive. I hope you weren't asleep. Difficult to see on Zoom. But I hope you enjoyed it. And yes, I'd love to come back and speak to you again sometime. So a big thank you from me to Macclesfield Astronomical Society. All the best with the society and everything that you do. Okay. So let's move on. We are joined in the studio by Mr. Jonathan Powell. How are you,
Hey.
Jonathan?
Hey.
Good evening. Good evening.
You do know what the time is, I guess, yeah? What time do you call this?
Oi, 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 oi. I'll take all the flack now, Roger. Don't worry. Don't worry,
Okay.
fella.
Yeah, right. We turn our attention to Jonathan. How are you, sir?
I'm all right. I'm well, thank you very much. Yourselves? All good?
Yeah, everybody's good.
Lovely, thank you.
I'm just,
Wonderful.
we're just
Maybe not so much now.
Wow.
Okay. Yes. Do you have anything for us tonight?
Yes, I do. I'm
Okay,
glad you
right.
asked me that, Andy. I really am.
Yeah.
Not a lot, but I have
So
indeed.
I think what we'll do, we'll go to Michael next, and then we'll come back to you. Is that okay?
That's absolutely fine.
Okay.
No
All
worries.
right then. Just a reminder that we here at Space Oddities are absolutely crazy about coffee. If you would like to buy us a coffee, then all you have to do is to scan the QR code that you see on the screen now, and your donations help us to keep Space Oddities going. So we'd be very grateful for any money you can spare. We know it's hard times for everybody, but anything you can spare, because we have bills to pay with Space Oddities like anybody else, and we do want to keep bringing the universe to you on a Monday. So anything you can spare would be gratefully appreciated, and it'll go towards keeping us awake and alert and pretty hyper with the coffee that you buy us. Jonathan, or a burger, he says. Honestly, yeah, we see where you're coming from. So there we are. So I'll just leave that on the screen for just a wee bit longer, so that you can scan it with your QR software on your phone, if you would like to. And listen, we are really genuinely appreciative of any donations we receive, because it enables us to expand the channel and make plans to do better things in the future. So thank you so much. Okay, Michael is full of juice, apparently.
Yeah, the squeeze.
Yeah, that sounds a bit nasty. Michael, we recently covered the live launch of the JUICE probe to Jupiter, the Jupiter Icy Moons Explorer, or JUICE for short. And Michael is going to actually tell us something about that. So, Michael, what have you got for us?
Okay, I'll just share my screen. I've got a few slides showing what JUICE is on, and it's
Right. Let me just make that bigger. So there we are.
I'm just sharing my screen now.
Okay.
Can you see that?
Yep, perfectly.
Okay. This is all about JUICE. A diagram, emblem European space with the cube-like spacecraft with the solar panels deployed. This is an artist's impression of how it would look in space with the solar panels.
Sorry, Michael, your slides aren't moving.
No, they're not moving.
Oh, actually, that's strange. You've got two presentations going here. Let me just switch to the other one.
Okay.
I'm going to turn that one off, and we'll maximize that one.
Okay.
No, it's still not working. Let me just remove this one altogether. Let's get rid of that one.
Yeah.
And maximize that one. That's got it. That's it. Okay.
So this is an artist's impression of JUICE itself. As I say, cube-like spacecraft. The spacecraft is a 3-axis stabilized platform that will accommodate 10 instruments. Power subsystem consists of a solar array with 2 wings of 5 panels each, for a total service of 85 meters squared, providing up to 820 watts at Jupiter. And you just got to remember that Jupiter is so far away from the sun. I think this is probably the furthest you can get with solar-powered spacecraft.
Yeah.
The high-gain antenna is 2.5 meters in diameter, and using X and Ka bands, will ensure telemetry commands, telecommand links for routine operations and safe mode and radio science related investigations. At least 1.4 gigabits of scientific data will be downloaded every day.
Every day, blimey.
Every day.
Wow.
Just think of how long that will take to analyze.
Yeah, absolutely.
Propulsion system is a bipropellant main engine plus a set of 10 thrusters. The two main mission maneuvers are the Jupiter and Ganymede orbit insertions, and 2 volts will provide to some electronics shielding against the harsh Jupiter radiation environment. Spacecraft also includes deployable appendices such as a 10.6 meter boom supporting the JMAG and RPWI sensors and a 16 meter radar antenna. So quite a lot of instruments on board. This is a schematic of the spacecraft itself, showing all the instruments are. So you've got the optical camera system and a visible infrared imaging spectrometer, UV imaging spectrograph, a sub-millimeter wave instrument, a radar sounder, a laser altimeter, radio science experiments, a magnetometer, particle environment package, and radio and plasma wave instruments. Now, this is a European mission, and I'll show you in a minute. But this is
it's a big old beast, isn't it?
I've just put this in just to show you the actual size of the spacecraft compared with the technicians working at the installation in Europe, in the clean room there. So it's a big beast, I must admit. I think it's probably one of the biggest that we've had. It looks even, I'm not sure how it compares with JWST, but it's obviously launched on Ariane 5, which I'll come to as well. The European consortium, as it were, Great Britain, most of the European countries are involved, including Norway and Sweden and Finland, and also United States has involvement in this as well, Japan and Israel. So it's quite an international project. So this will,
And it's worth pointing out that probably the most important instrument on JUICE is the magnetometer, and it's British. So that's worth pointing out, that the magnetometer is British.
Yeah. So. Okay. Just a few notes on previous spacecraft that visited Jupiter. Most recently was the Cassini mission, got launched in 1997. Ulysses used Jupiter as a gravity assist to go to the poles of the sun, which was launched in 1990. Galileo was launched in 1989, which had an orbiter and a probe. Voyager 1 flew past Jupiter and Saturn which was launched in 1977, and so did Voyager 2. And earlier than that, Pioneer 11 was a Jupiter flyby mission in 1973, and Pioneer 10 in 72.
Don't forget Juno as well.
And Juno, of course, yes. That's should have mentioned that. Don't know why that doesn't mention that.
Perhaps there wasn't one on the slide.
No, not this one. So this is the launch of JUICE on the 14th of April at 13:13 BST from Kourou in French Guiana. And shortly after reaching orbit or reaching space, the probe took its own few selfies, including spacecraft and a view of the Earth, to say where it was.
Yeah.
Okay. So that was that. Just a few things now on the journey to Jupiter. It's quite complex orbital trajectory, really, to get to Jupiter. Quite a number of flybys, including an Earth-Moon flyby in August 24. But it does say on this slide it's to be replaced by an Earth flyby if it launches after. Sorry, I misread that, for instance. Okay, Yeah, so there will be a lunar Earth flyby in August 24.
Yeah.
Venus flyby in 25. First, another Earth flyby in 26, September 26, January 29, and then it will actually take it to Jupiter to arrive in 2031.
Long time to wait. Long time to wait.
Long time to wait. I just want to play this video, if I can, which shows all of the orbits. It's about 5 minutes long, and it shows all of the orbits and that's it, that it's going to take up to the final, decommissioning, shall we say?
Yeah.
There's Juice. Coming back to Earth, across the moon. Venus gravity assist. Another Earth flyby in 29.
Excellent.
So that's
Mm.
500 kilometer orbit of Ganymede. It's going to be actually, absolutely amazing, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
No.
It really is. Can I just ask a question that perhaps? Good evening, Bernard. Completing our Celebrity Squares setup tonight. Bernard has dropped in. How are you?
I'm doing fine. I'm sorry for being late.
That's all right. Jonathan's set
busy
the
on other
precedent,
things.
so you're not.
Tell him off. Go on.
Yeah. Have you got a note from your mother?
No. We need him.
Okay.
We need to cut some other way.
And you wanted to say something?
Yes. I just wanted to ask a question. The focus of the mission does seem to be very much on Ganymede, with Europa.
Yes, I believe that is the actual main target. Although the orbits are going to take Juice close to the 3 of the moons.
Yeah.
And
Bernard, go on.
I can add on that. JUICE is based on an initial dual mission with NASA and ESA that was planned in the 90s, where the US was going to launch their probe, which was going to explore Io in Europa, and Europe was going to explore Callisto and Ganymede. And this dual mission was supposed to launch together, and you would have 2 major probes. And then, due to budget restraints, the US had to drop their probe, and therefore Europe had to scratch their heads and ESA and say, what do? Do we still launch our probe and just explore Callisto and Ganymede? And at the end, they decided to do so, which is why JUICE is not exploring in any detail Io and is just doing one flyby of Europa.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, on the back of that, the US had budget again now to build the Clipper, which is going to explore Europa only, which is why JUICE was developed really and solely as a probe just to really study Callisto and Ganymede being, the real most interesting moon of both, which is why it's going to orbit Ganymede. It really is a historical reason for that.
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
So
Yeah, because there's.
Sorry,
Sorry.
Lou, have you got any thoughts on that?
I've been reading the chat here. By the way, it sounds like Io is being left out, but poor Io.
Well, it is an Icy Moons Explorer.
Yeah, okay. But that name kind of follows the mission. A lot of comments about the trajectory, and I think I've figured this out because I just rented a car and drove around in England for a week, and I have never seen so many roundabouts in my life, and that's why this orbit, the trajectory is so roundabout.
Don't give up your day job.
But Voyager did go directly to Jupiter and got there in about 2 years. But it was a flyby, and so it didn't have to slow down. And somebody in the chat, and I think I've lost it in the stream here, has said that it's very energy efficient to use many gravity assists. That's certainly true. Less fuel, less costly. And of course, it's a very competitive world out there competing for these missions. So you have to get within budget as well as within technical specs.
Yeah.
Alan Lebry wanted to know if these, if when JUICE flies by the Earth, we'll be able to see it in the night sky? Anybody know? We don't know.
I would say yes.
Ooh.
I would say yes if it was in the night sky.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the night sky. Yeah, that's the thing. We all due to timing as well, isn't it? You'd have to know where to look, and it'll probably be moving quite fast as well. Just taking on what Bernard was saying about being a ride share. Also, the Russians were going to have a probe on there as well, and it was going to be a combination of an orbiter and a lander. It was going to be called the Europa Lander. But of course, it was called Laplace. Don't get excited, Andy. I said Laplace, not lap dance.
My days are long gone.
Of course, with the geopolitical things, it all got pushed to one side. So, but yeah, it was called Laplace P. It was going to be a combination of a lander as well as a orbiter, and it was going to Europa. So that was something else we lost off this this mission, which is a big shame. Big shame.
Well, just to remind the viewers that NASA is launching their Europa Clipper next year, but it's actually going to arrive in the Jovian system before JUICE. So,
Right.
but slightly before, a few months before. Yes, Lou.
Oh, so having a few moments to think, we used to see iridium flares quite frequently.
We did.
And of course, now we have the Starlink. And the thing that makes them very visible are their solar panels reflecting light. And it seems to me that JUICE has a pretty large array of solar panels. So I imagine if they're at the right angle, we would be able to see it, even if it's just
people like Dave Eagle. Dave Eagle actually photographed JWST on the way up to L2 from his back garden. So I'm sure he'd be able to photograph JUICE on a flyby. Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you for that, Michael. It's time to move on. And I think what we'll do is, because I can see she's getting tired and we don't want to keep her up, I think we'll go over to Rachel before we come to you, Jonathan, if you have no objections to that. Right. Okay. Not that it would matter if you did, but I thought I'd give you the option. Anyway, Rachel, how are you, my lovely? You okay?
Good, although somebody did comment that they'd already seen me have a sneaky yawn.
Yeah.
I tried to hide it, but not
actually, no, I did see that as well, which I thought would come why we'd come to you next. So this is Rachel's wonderful weekly gallery that she so kindly spends time putting together. Thank you to all of our viewers who are sending in their images for inclusion in the gallery. If you'd like to send any astronomical images, or well, not necessarily just astronomical, any skyscapes, anything like that, remotely connected with the sky. If you want to send them in, we'd love to see them, and the address to send them to is spaceodditieslive@gmail.com, Rachel. And
I just got too many images. I'm trying to get less to come if I give them the wrong email.
I understand. So spaceodditieslive@gmail.com is the place to send your astronomical images for inclusion in Rachel's wonderful gallery. So let's move straight over to the Vision On gallery, Rachel's gallery, and let's see what we've got tonight, Rachel.
Okay. So we're starting off like we start off all our shows, with the man with all the plans. It's an image, and it's not the moon, and it's not the sun, and it's from Roger.
Gasp.
So he's taken the Pinwheel Galaxy M101. He said he only got about 90 minutes worth of subs because it even got mistier in Sparkford, which I think is outright lies. I don't believe that happens in Sparkford. But here it is, and he's processed it in APP and Photoshop, and I think you want to add more to it, don't you, Roger? But this is just the start.
It's a start.
It's very good, Roger.
Wow.
Very nice.
That is beautiful.
Especially for an hour. Well, 90 minutes as well. That's.
You really need to set up in the village hall an exhibition of all your work, Roger. You really should. I keep telling you this.
Okay.
I'd go.
Gallery and cakes, Roger.
Yeah.
Your biscuits are divine as well. So.
All right.
Bake sale and astro pictures.
Absolutely. I mean, you could clean up. You know.
After it's all done, you clean up.
We've got. I had to Google this one because I'd never seen this one before, which is the Fossil Footprint Nebula in Perseus by Jerry.
Never heard of it. That's a new one.
I even went to look to see how it would fit in my field of view. I was really excited to find something else, but I don't think it's a good height for us at the minute. But yeah, it's really. I've never.
Oh, it's Jerry. Jerry, well done. That's
Oh my goodness.
That's beautiful.
Where is this? Did he say where?
Perseus.
Never heard of
Somewhere
it.
in Perseus.
Perseus.
So yeah,
That is amazing.
you get to have a go at this one now. You've inspired me, so thank you, Jerry.
That is amazing. Well done, Jerry. Thank you for giving us a new target.
Another one by Jerry. So he's done the Lionhead Nebula or the Lion Nebula in Cepheus.
Excellent.
And again, using the same setup. So there's lots going on.
Wow.
So Thank you, Jerry. Always coming up with new and obscure targets.
Why not?
And why not? Yes.
Then we've got one.
I say the Lionhead Nebula. Sorry,
It
the
might be
Lionhead.
lion,
It
I
looks
don't know
more
if I
like a
added it there.
Velociraptor. I think it looks like a Velociraptor.
Where are
Have you
looking?
been on the wacky backy again?
Well,
Which
yeah.
part is-
There's mushrooms for tea. Mushrooms for tea.
I can't see it, Daz, but I believe you.
No, I can't see it either. Looks like a turtle.
Well, no, up in the top left.
Oh, yeah, I keep having to go back to it now. Top left. No.
No.
Like peering out through the cloud. Is that dark bit in the?
Dark
Well, forget it.
That formation at lower left, the bluish one, to me looks like looking down on a turtle swimming.
Aw.
Okay.
From the what?
No, never mind. Moving on.
Okay, yeah.
The swimming
one of the
turtle,
whales.
lionhead, velociraptor nebula. We'll move on.
It's turtles all the way down.
You can tell it's getting late, so it's not just me. One from Lee, which is some star trails from his home in Dillable, and
No doggers.
no doggers this time, which is good. We're glad you made it out safe there, Lee. Just a dog walker, and nearly 2 hours worth until the tripod blew over and his feet were getting cold. So this is taken on his smartphone as well, which is
Oh, wow.
nice to
Right
see. You
then.
don't even
Oh,
have to
good.
lug your heavy equipment out to all the doggers now, Lee. You can just do it handy from your pocket.
So to speak.
You can have a light, and go away fast.
Steady on.
It's the way I tell them.
Cracker.
Oh,
Is
God.
it on the show?
I love how you can see different colors in the stars.
Thank
Yeah.
you for bringing
Yeah,
it back to science.
very nice.
There we go. Thank you.
Sense. Thank you.
Yes. Well done, sir. Well done. I hope you weren't too cold.
Oh dear. And then we've got one from Sonia Turkington, which is Venus with the Pleiades and the Hyades, which she took on the 7th of April with her Canon 250D.
Oh, lovely.
Hmm.
The Pleiades and the Hyde.
That's nice.
That's lovely. Well done, Sonia. Well done. That's lovely.
Thank you, Sonia.
Yeah.
Oh. Then we've got the Iris Nebula by Chris O'Riordan. So he's given us lots of information here, but this one again's in Cepheus, and it's a really lovely reflection nebula. And this is about 3 hours, I think he said, and then the same in total from the RGB. And he loves this because of the vast clouds of interstellar dust, and it's the dust that's been illuminated by the central star.
Beautiful. Well done, Chris.
Oh, lovely that.
That is lovely.
Really
Very
nice.
That is lovely. I know I say this all the time, but the sheer quality of images that inverted commas amateurs are producing these days, rivaling big telescopes of yesteryear. I mean,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yesteryear, half of these are Hubble stolen pictures. My goodness.
Yeah.
Plagiarism on Space Oddities? Never.
No, we never do things like that.
No,
It's
and speaking of plagiarism, here's an image by Jonathan, nothing to do with me at all,
No, not at all.
of the Bodes and Cigar Galaxy that he's been working on in LRGB, which he took, I think, last week, and I've processed. We were gathering more, but he's now he's hungry for the Iris Nebula now. So I feel like he'll have moved on.
Whoa.
Well, that's nice.
Nice.
Yeah, and I think that was I think we said about 2 hours of luminance and then about 50 minutes on each RGB filter, I think. So not too much.
That bodes well.
Oh,
Oh, puns intended.
Ka-ching! I thank you.
And, oh gosh, to finish off, gone
Oh.
ahead. It says the Pinwheel Galaxy, but it's not.
Hey,
It's obviously the
I'm
sun. It's
Wow,
definitely
that's a
not
real
the
close
Pinwheel
one.
Galaxy. And this is by Kev, and it's
That's how far, isn't it?
it's a shame. It really is that the animation won't play because it's a stunning animation. But if you head over to his Twitter, which I'm sure he'll put in the chat if he's watching, you can see the animation there. But this is from a really active prominence, and it's made from 152 images.
Wow.
His GIF. which is, well, each being a 500 frame video. And I know like the sheer data size was enormous for this.
Wow.
But yeah,
definition.
you can go and look at the animation, and he's got his tag actually there at the bottom, which is Kevin Astro Kev, but the animation is even better.
Well, I'll tell you what we'll do, Kev. Sorry we couldn't play the animation this week because we have technical limitations that we won't bore you with. But I'll sort something out for next week. We'll definitely watch it next week. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's an amazing image, by the way. That is truly amazing.
It is. And I thought that would nicely round off the gallery this week.
And
thank you so much, Rachel. Thank you so much. Everybody, Rachel does such a fantastic job every week, especially in her, should we say, delicate condition at the moment of putting all of this stuff together.
She's presenting for two.
Yes,
don't forget photographers.
She's collating images for two now. So, thank you so much, Rachel. Much appreciated. Michael, you're trying to say something.
Yeah, sorry, I was putting in. Sorry, and don't forget if all you photographers are members of local astronomical societies that are FAS members, if you want your images published in the FAS newsletter, you can send the images to newsletter@fedastro.org.uk. Thank you.
There we are. There you have it. Okay, well, lastly tonight, and
thanks.
Yeah,
that's what comes from turning up late.
Yeah.
You can shut up and all.
We have a gentleman who hasn't been a Space Oddity for that long, already too long.
Survived.
And Jonathan, in case you haven't met Jonathan before, Jonathan is our resident expert on near-Earth objects, or NEOs, those things that tabloid readers get absolutely paranoid about. So, Jonathan, nice to see you again.
Yes, thank you very much indeed, Andy.
And what have you got for us this week?
Lovely. Well, I can see that time is rolling on, but after the Pearl and Dean announcements, of course, you get to the main feature of the evening.
Roger's already done his segment, so it can't be that.
Yeah. Pearl and Dean.
Well, there you go. So, yes, indeed. Well, I will keep this brief, luckily enough, only because the printer ink ran out. But it's now scouring for this, obviously, from various sources, and in the monthly notices of the Royal Astronomical Society, the results of a study carried out on the Neptunian Trojans, as you know, a cloud of asteroids which orbit around the Sun, paralleling that of Neptune's. The report revealed that Trojans these particular Trojans all seem to have some shade of red within them, far redder than most asteroids in the solar system. Briefly, these were first discovered in 2001. The Trojans, of the amount of which is less than around about 50, and they reside in the gravitational stable points between Neptune and the Sun, or indeed between Neptune and Pluto. And the research was conducted by astronomers at NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center. It took 2 years to complete. And they found that the crimson color indicates the asteroids are very rich in volatile compounds such as ammonia and methanol. And the ices are made of these chemicals are very sensitive to heat and will rapidly turn to gas when exposed to enough solar radiation. And because of this, astronomers expect asteroids closer to the Sun to have far less of a red tinge, their ammonia and methanol having already boiled away, being close to the Sun. And the research bore that out, actually. We got slate grey as the sort of color. If you went into a DIY shop and you went through the color scheme, you start with slate grey, closer to the Sun in the inner solar system, and dark red, which would go out beyond Pluto's orbit, and all because of the gases burning off, or the chemicals burning off close to the Sun. Now, it's likely that some of Neptune's reddest asteroids formed even farther from the Sun in the solar system's early days before migrating inwards and getting caught in Neptune's orbit. And like all asteroids, they're a historical piece of the early formation of the solar system, and it could well open up a window through these compositions to show us exactly how the changes have occurred over the last 4.6 billion years. So an interesting color scope, if you like, found, and the study of the Trojans revealing that the farther out they are, the redder they are, because the sun's influence is an extreme there.
Oh.
Thanks to sorry.
No, it's okay. Carry on. As you were.
No, thank you. Thanks to ESA once again for these figures. And interestingly enough, there's a 2-week lag on this one. Not prism related, of course, old lag sort of thing. But the current total of near-Earth asteroids stands at 31,805, and the leap across the fortnight has been quite considerable. Yeah, because because I'm very sad, I sort of monitor the sort of leap week to week of these, and it's gone up something in the region of about 120, which is a rather quite a spike over the last fortnight in the cumulative current total. Now, of those 31,805, we got 1,471 in the risk list. So that's gone up about 14 in the last fortnight, which is sort of not as, I mean, the actual current total that leapt. This was more like in line with what we expect. And the good orbital information, current known asteroids with good orbital information, we're tracking a massive 1,167,499 of them at the moment. That's the current tracking. And since the start of the year, near Earth objects discovered, and this is quite a trend as well. It's rather large as we go to the end of April to see this sort of number, which means that obviously our ability to track continues to improve, and we've seen an uptake of 586 newly discovered since the start of the year. So it's just must be the monitoring process that's able to filter them out and give us that sort of reading. But at the moment, a noticeable leap in the last fortnight of the current total of near-Earth asteroids, and I don't know if that indicates a trend of the next week or so, but I'll keep an eye on that for you. And from the Near-Earth Object Watch Desk, that's it.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. So, it's, as you said, our ability to track these potentially hazardous objects is really improving. So that's great. Thank you very much, our man on the spot, Jonathan, with his Neos. Steve Orbis would like you to know, undoubtedly, do you know the title of the Pearl and Dean music?
That one.
That one. The very same.
Yeah, chalk ice is available in the foyer.
It's not Kiora either. It's actually called, hang on to your hats, it's actually called Asteroid.
Oh, get out.
Wow. Yeah, it's true. It's true. Steve says it's actually called Asteroid. Yes, it does.
And I'm sorry, if we're just moving on, going back to your presentation on SpaceX and the Starship launch, while we've actually been talking, just appeared on my computer, and it could cause problems for SpaceX to do another launch. The headline is SpaceX rocket explosion rained brown debris on nearby parks and towns. I'll read it because it's only a short one, but I haven't had a chance to look at it properly. So, even as SpaceX said its Starship flight termination system worked as designed, Thursday's spectacular launch failure in Texas also revealed another potential issue with the program locally: explosive debris. The SpaceX rocket launch explosion rained debris over a wide area, shaking homes and covering nearby Port Isabel with brown grime for miles. Rob Nixon of San Benito, who watched the launch from Port Isabel, told Texas Public Radio the rocket's impact was felt for miles. I wasn't expecting to collect raining particles today, and my wife's classroom in Los Fresnos vibrated 20 miles away. Port Isabel spokeswoman Valerie Bates told the New York Times that most of the city was covered with a thick, granular sand that landed on everything. It was truly terrifying, said Sharon. She was home with her 80-year-old mother when the brick house shook with the rocket explosion. Cameron County Emergency Management Division confirmed that debris was sand and soil from the SpaceX launch. Even before Thursday's launch, concerns were expressed about the expressive failure we could have on the local environment. Previous explosions at Space Starbase and Boca Chica have created large debris fields. Thursday's spray of debris and fallout was so severe that Boca Chica Beach and section of the State Highway were still closed on the Friday. So, of course, this could have implications with the FAA issuing a new license. Is something that's going to have to be investigated.
They will want to have a lengthy investigation and get to the bottom of exactly what happened and why. We know what happened and why. Elon Musk made a bad call in not building a flame diverter or a decent water suppression system. Anyway, so this brings us to the end of our live stream for tonight. We'd like to thank you very much for watching. We'd especially like to welcome our new viewers, like Miss Duck72, if you're still around, sir, or madam. Then thank you for being here. You're welcome anytime, and you're never a gatecrasher. We've really enjoyed bringing you the universe tonight. We will be back at the same time next week, and with more fun and frolics from the cosmos. We would like to thank our sponsor, Roller Valley Optics, for their support in this broadcast. And next week we will be bringing you news of our latest competition next week, where you can win a fabulous prize. And we will bring you news of that next week. I know I said that last week, but we had a few delays. Nothing to worry about. We will be having a competition. We will announce the details next week, and it's a fabulous prize. So stay tuned. Tune in next week to see what.
I think Bernard's got something to say.
Don't forget, next week is bank holiday in the UK, so
It is.
It's a holiday here as well, actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mayday.
We'll need to consider if we have enough folks.
So our US viewers will have to keep us afloat.
Absolutely. Yeah. So yes, it is a bank holiday next week. If you can spare us the time, we'd love to have you watching next week.
Yeah.
Jonathan, you should be on the stage. There's one leaving.
Yeah, one leaving shortly. Yes.
Oh, the old ones are the good ones. Okay, well, that's been that for tonight. Thank you so much for watching. We are Space Oddities. We bring the universe to you. And as Daz has just demonstrated quite nicely with his interjection, if it's happening in space, it's happening on Space Oddities. So thank you very much for watching, viewers. We appreciate it.
Hot off the press.
Yeah,
hot off the press.
Hot off the press. And this is why you watch us, you see, because we can do things like this. Thank you to all of those who bought coffees tonight. I've noticed a few being processed. You have our deepest thanks. We're really appreciative of your support when you buy us coffee. So thank you so much from the heart of our bottoms. So there we are. So we will say good night. Tune in for the same time next week. And we are Space Oddities, and we are saying good night. So good night to Daz. Good night to Michael. Good night to Roger. Good night to Lou. Good night to Rachel. Good night to Jonathan. Good night to Bernard, our latecomers tonight. And it's no coincidence that they're at the bottom of the screen, of course. That's where you end up. It's in the punishment basement. You end up down in the basement if you turn up late. Don't do anything. All right, viewers. We'll see you soon. Take care. Have a fantastic week. Hope all goes well. And from Space Oddities, it's goodbye. Bye-bye.
Bye all.